This is the Chamber Chat Podcast, the show dedicated to chamber professionals to spark ideas and to get actionable tips and strategies to better serve your members and community. Hello, Chamber Champions. Welcome to Chamber Chat Podcast. I'm your host, Brandon Burton, and it's my goal here on the podcast to introduce you to people and ideas to better help you serve your chamber members and your community. Our title sponsor for this episode is Bringing Local Back. This powerful platform is designed to help chambers like yours support and elevate local businesses in a digital-first world. Whether you missed our recent webinar or want to dive deeper, visit chamberchatpodcast.com/bringinglocalback to learn more. Discover how you can enhance visibility for your members, generate non-dues revenue, and truly make an impact in your community. Don't miss out on this opportunity to drive meaningful change. Explore the Bringing Local Back platform today. You're joining us for a special episode in our 2024 Chamber of the Year Finalist series. And our guest for this episode is Todd Sanders. Todd is the president and CEO of the Greater Phoenix Chamber in Arizona and was named that role in 2009. Before assuming his current role, Todd represented the interests of businesses and community at the Arizona State Legislature and Phoenix City Hall as Vice President of Public Affairs. In that role, he enhanced the Chamber's position as a statewide leader in immigration policy, initiative reform, and pro-business tax policy. Prior to joining the Chamber, Todd acted as a research and policy analyst for the Arizona House of Representatives, serving several standing committees in the areas of taxation, environment, energy, state trust land, counties, municipalities, and international trade. He also acted as a liaison to the Arizona-Mexico Commission on behalf of the House of Representatives and currently serves as board president for the Arizona-Mexico Commission. Todd is a native of Bogota, Colombia, holds a Bachelor of Science in Political Science from Northern Arizona University, and he and his wife have a son and live in Phoenix, Arizona. Todd, I'm excited to have you with us today here on Chamber Chat Podcast. I want to start by saying congratulations to you and your team. What an honor and accomplishment, and I want to allow you a chance to say hello to all the Chamber champions that are out there listening and share something interesting about yourself so we can all get to know you a little better.
You bet. Well, thank you for that introduction. I think if my mom were here, she would be certainly proud, but I certainly embarrassed by all of those details. Thank you for taking the time. I can't tell you how thrilled we are here in Phoenix to be in the running for a Chamber of the Year. It is a tremendous honor, and as soon as we were notified, the whole chamber was just overjoyed. So really appreciate the opportunity. In terms of about things about me, I usually tell people, sure, I was born in Bogota, Colombia, kicked out for bad behavior. But I will tell you something that I think probably 99% of people don't know. So you mentioned that my name is Todd Sanders. Recently, well, I shouldn't say recently, about 3 or 4 years ago, we were at a family reunion, and somehow our family tree came up, and we mentioned my brothers and I were saying, well, we know that my mom's side was from Scotland and dad's side was from Italy. And someone piped up and said, Italy, what are you talking about? There's no Italian blood here. And we were just, we were so confused. Dad's not with us anymore. And what we learned was what actually happened is generations ago, our great-great-grandfather migrated from, I believe, Mexico into the United States, settled in California, and at that time decided that probably would be more advantageous to have a more Anglo-Saxon sounding name. So he and some friends who sort of came up with this idea put some names into a hat, and my great-great-grandfather drew the name Sanders. Previously, and I guess you could say currently, our name had been Sepulveda. So actually, you're talking to Todd Sepulveda, but by accident, or I guess because of a set of circumstances, Todd Sanders. So something that most people don't know about me. And of course, Todd Sepulveda doesn't really roll off the tongue.
That's right. I wonder if your first name would have been different if it was still Sepulveda.
I wonder.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah. Might be talking to a whole different person. But
Exactly.
yeah, that's interesting. I like hearing the family history and how names change. And my last name's currently Burton, Burton. But again, his family immigrated into the States. They came from France through Canada into Maine. And at the time, it was Bertin. And of course, everybody's illiterate back then. So they said the name, it got written down Burton, and here we are still today. So yeah, it
That's the way
is
it
interesting.
works.
That's right. Well, tell us about the Greater Phoenix Chamber. That's what we're here for. So tell us about your organization, size, staff, budget,
Sure.
scope of work, just to set the stage for us.
Well, you bet. Well, thank you for that opportunity. So we have interesting history. Unlike most of the folks that are listening to this podcast nationally, where states have been around for a while, Arizona is a relatively young state. We were formed in 1912, so we just had our centennial. Chamber was formed in 1888. So prior to statehood, some visionary business leaders at the time formed the Phoenix Chamber. And obviously through that time, it has evolved into the organization it is today. So as of now, we have about 2,400 members ranging in all sizes. Our budget is it's split between two entities. There's the chamber side and the foundation side. And when you put those two together, it's shy of about $10 million. With the foundation being slightly larger. Our staff is currently close to 70, and a lot of that serves some of the needs that we're addressing through the foundation.
Yeah.
In terms of programs of work, as you mentioned, I come from a policy background, so I can't get away from that. We do a lot of the state legislature. We work a lot with our city council, and more, especially with our friends at the U.S. Chamber, we're doing work at the federal level. There's also an economic development component to the work we do now. Like most of us, we aren't an attractor. We have a statewide attractor and a county attractor of businesses into the valley. But as most chambers do, when we get businesses coming to town, how do we keep them here? How do we keep them growing? And then finally, as an outgrowth of that work, there's a workforce component to it, and that's really where the foundation comes into play.
Yeah. And I'm glad to hear that you guys have a foundation. I know that's kind of the trajectory that we see chambers are encouraging chambers to go to be able to really further the work that they have to do. But so typically on these Chamber of the Year finalist episodes, what I like to do is focus the majority of our time on the programs that were submitted on your Chamber of the Year application and dive into kind of the origins for those and the impact that they're making in your community. And we'll dive into those programs for the Greater Phoenix Chamber as soon as we get back from this quick break. Are you looking for a year-round, affordable, and timely shop local campaign for your chamber or CVB? Look no further. Build a custom Eat, Shop, Play mobile app with App My Community by visiting appmycommunity.com/chamberchat. App My Community mobile apps are not just simple membership directory listings. They provide many more capabilities to engage with your community. Provide your residents with a robust events calendar. Partner with a local fair, festival, or farmers market to provide a schedule, map, and other resources to promote the event. Run a Small Business Saturday campaign any time of the year using built-in scavenger hunts. Allow your membership to communicate directly to their customers via push notifications. Your App My Community mobile app will be a unique member benefit, allow you to generate non-dues revenue with sponsorship opportunities, and best of all, provide a valuable resource to your community. Please visit appmycommunity.com/chamberchat now to receive 10% off your first year of an App My Community mobile app. Are you looking for a way to grow and manage your Chamber of Commerce more effectively? Look no further than Chamber Nation. Their innovative software provides everything you need to streamline operations, engage members, and increase revenue. With features like event management, membership directories, advanced membership tools, mobile apps, community kiosks, and financial reporting, Chamber Nation makes it easy to run your chamber like a well-oiled machine. Don't miss out on this opportunity to take your chamber to the next level. Visit richardscalendar.com to learn more about Chamber Nation today. All right, Todd, we're back. So as I mentioned before the break, we'll dive into the programs that were submitted on your Chamber of the Year application. I understand that the first kind of scope or program of work, we'll say, it covers several programs kind of in one container, we'll say. But please introduce that to us. Let us know what those programs are, and again, what the origins and the reason, and kind of how this developed.
Well, thank you for that. You're right. The first set of programs is sort of under one category, and I think about it as sort of this idea of belonging. My philosophy, my leadership philosophy, really revolves around an abundance model, which of course isn't blind to the fact that we have to compete, but there's also a lot of room for us to work together or to bring people in. So one of those is really revolves around our strategy relating to helping small and mid-sized business understand what the road to diversity and inclusion looks like for their companies. Large companies really don't have a big challenge with implementing these kinds of programs within their organizations, but small and mid-sized companies tend to have challenges with that. And this goes back eight years ago, July 7th, by the way, July 7th. 2016 was the day that this all started for me. I had a member of my board, Frank Reed, an African-American gentleman, who called me and said, Todd, I need to go to lunch and I need to get on your calendar today, which I thought was interesting. But we did it, and he and our chair, we sat down and he said, today in my hometown of Dallas, 5 police officers were shot for a race-related reason, and we can't let that happen in Phoenix. And part of that is because we're not bringing people in, we're not having conversations, and we're not really thinking about belonging here. And he said, I need the chamber to engage. And at that lunch, we said, all right, we're going to do that. And that was the start of something I think really impactful, which began with this toolkit that, for instance, our friends in the Billings, Montana chamber are using as well, where we're giving small, mid-sized businesses a roadmap to start to bring people in and have conversations about how we can all belong. And we built out a toolkit. One of the first things that occurred was that we decided that staff's not going to build this thing out. My members of my executive committee built this thing out with help from us and more of logistical support. And the product, I think, was remarkable. Now it's in its second iteration. And the discussion at that time was, well, what do we do with this? And we immediately decided we're not monetizing it. We're giving it away. And you can imagine my salespeople weren't thrilled with this idea, but we felt like it really important for us to learn from what happened in Dallas. And this is before certainly George Floyd and all these other things. But how do we start bringing people in and just talk to each other, right? And so we decided we would give it away, whether you're a member or not. We want to help people, and we formed a committee that really, what we do is we help businesses along the way when they want to have conversations about how do you include people and how do we make that a part of what we do every day. That's the toolkit that we use. So that's one part of it. There were some existing programs that really got wrapped into this. We have an Athena program, which I'm sure a lot of people are familiar with the Athena International program. And that's really how we look at women leaders in our community that balance, obviously, leadership positions. They also are mentors, and they're making change in their community. And we've had this for 38 years now. It's a really important part of who we are. There's also a business, a women's alliance, where we're bringing women leaders together on a monthly basis, and we really promote what they're doing. They network with each other. They lift people up, and it's a remarkable program. You never leave one of these programs without feeling inspired and really wondering how you didn't know about this person in our community. And then finally, our Valley Young Professionals. When I became CEO, I really made it a goal to make this a program that was going to be worthwhile, not just something where we were checking the box. And so we really thought about how do we make this impactful? And part of that obviously is giving people coming into the careers an opportunity to really understand what it's like to serve on a board. What's a nonprofit all about? What's your role? What's the role of the organization? And it was working really well. We had really strong leaders, which I think is part of the key, right? But then there was something that was missing, because there was always this idea that there's the VYP board, Valley Young Professional Board, and then there's sort of quote unquote big board. And I thought, why do we have that? And going back to this idea of abundance, I said, well, let's do this. I want to make the leadership, so the chair and the vice chair, I want to make them full-fledged members of our board. And that means they're voting members. They're not junior members. They're there to observe, but they're full-fledged members of the board. That really sort of changed the way young people were looking at this committee and engaging in this committee. Now, what's interesting about it, how you're thinking about influencing and really bringing up a sort of a set of people. As we started to incorporate them into the board, we started feeling significant benefits from having completely different point of view on the board. So much so that at our board retreats, we actually invite the VYP board, the full board, into our retreats along with our foundation, because they're adding so much to the conversation. So really this whole idea and all of these programs are all wrapped around this thought that there's a lot of abundance out there, and how do we start to share that, and how do we start to bring people up? And as a consequence, it's made us stronger, it's made us healthier, and I think in a lot of ways it's the reason why we're here today talking to you, because that's the kind of thing that really starts to move a community forward.
Right. Now, that's when you think of inclusion and making sure people feel welcomed. I like to think if somebody walks into a room and they don't feel like they belong there, whether it's whatever group, segmentation you want to, put the focus on, if they don't feel like they belong there, they're out. They're not going to stay. They're not going to come back. They're not going to engage. They're not going to go to the next level with engagement with your organization. So it's so important to be able to really highlight these areas to make sure that people from all different walks of life, as they come in, that this is a place for everyone in your community to be involved.
You bet.
And with that thought, I know unfortunately DEI gets kind of a political spin put on it. So how's the approach that you guys have, or have you received any feedback from people on the outside saying, what's the chamber doing, getting involved with these things, and how do you address that with them?
I haven't gotten the angry emails that I've heard about, and I think part of that is because we really look at it from a practical standpoint. I'll give you an example. Frank Reed, the gentleman that I talked about, provided such an important example, and we're seeing this, for instance, today in Phoenix. There are literally more jobs than people, so we're having to do everything that we can to really fill these critical slots in our economy. One of the things that this applies to is the workforce side, obviously. And his story was that they had a really high level position in a company that they were trying to fill, and they were thinking, all right, we need more women leaders. They brought in these 5. I mean, these were top notch Ivy League type folks that any one of them would have been incredible for this position. And so they brought them in, they did these interviews, and you know how these things work. It's not generally one person, it's probably a panel of folks. And they all 5 women declined the position in succession. And finally, Frank decided to call a couple of them. And what they said was, it seems like a great company, a lot of opportunity there, but I don't see myself represented there. There was just a bunch of men on this in this panel, and I didn't think I belonged there. And for him, it was a really interesting wake-up call, and said in the sense that if you want to bring people on board, make sure that they feel like they have a place there. And I think when we talk to companies about how you're going to look for this top talent, as we're thinking about $40 billion worth of semiconductor dollars coming into Arizona and what's going to be needed in terms of top talent, you got to make sure that people feel like they got a place at the table if you're looking to fill these really critical roles. So I think for us, it's been looking at this from a practical perspective. Same thing goes for the young professionals. When I think about way back when we started this group, there was one particular person who was their chair at the time, and she was a complete standout, just amazing. Went through that process, left the VYP group because she'd sort of graduated out and was chair and had done everything that could be done. Then she became a member of the board through her company. And 2 years ago, she was my chair. She was the chair of our board. And an incredibly catalytic leader who brought so much to the table. So I think when people start to see this as not a political exercise, but this idea that all we're doing is making sure that there's room at the table for everybody, you tend to win.
Yeah, that goes back to your thought on abundance, right? There's room for everybody, and let's show them. I've heard it, and I think I've shared it before on the podcast, but when you walk into a room and you see people gathered together, they tend to be in a circle, right? Talking to each other. And that to be inclusive instead of a circle, create more of a horseshoe, right? Leave it open, let people in, be able to let them feel welcome and like they belong there.
Well, it's true. And I think, part of that came from this idea you mentioned. I was from Colombia, and it's odd because when I'm in the States, I always feel like there's a part of me that doesn't belong, because it's true, right? People, well, you were born somewhere else. And when I'm in Colombia, people like automatically think I'm American because I don't look Colombian. And I
Sanders.
Don't have, I don't use the Sepulveda name down there. And so it's an odd thing so it gives you a sense for what that's like. But yeah, it's been really rewarding in terms of how far this has gone and the impact that it's had, not only on the chamber, but in organizations throughout the valley and in people.
Yeah, oh, that's great. Let's shift gears a bit into the other program that was submitted on your application. And if you could tell us what that is and what the origins and the purpose was behind that.
Well, you mentioned the foundation, and I'm really glad you did, and I'm encouraging other chambers to certainly look at foundations. And I will say that we call it the 10-year overnight success story.
Yeah,
it takes a lot,
as most are, right?
100%. I'd love to say it was 2 years, but a lot of that work was built on the things we had done in the past. And when I mentioned the retention and expansion work that we did, what I assumed when we started talking to businesses, that they would tell me, Todd, the big issues here in Arizona are taxes and regulation. And as we talked to business leaders, none of them said that, which was really shocking to me. And this is before workforce was cool. They all said, we don't have the qualified talent that we need today. And that was a big wake-up call for us. Part of that also was a visit we had with what would be a Fortune 200 company locally that was moving about 200 jobs that paid six figures outside of Arizona because they couldn't find enough people who could pass a Series 7 exam. And wow. Thinking, okay, hold on, we're the fifth largest city in the country. That doesn't seem possible, right? So we figured out very quickly that there was a role for us there. We needed to do more in this space. And so that's how we got into workforce. And as we had a few years under our belt with workforce, it became really clear that there wasn't a good method or a good pathway for kids in high schools looking to college and career, either or, right? I know it's black and white, but it's not. It's college and or career because they're interchangeable in some ways. And so I'll tell you the story real quick. We decided we really need to learn. And so there's a really great program in Nashville, and kudos to the Nashville Chamber and all the work that they do out there. A program in Nashville where they have these an academy model. And so we took a group out to Nashville, and we said, we want to learn about this. And by happenstance, the Phoenix Union board actually ended up there as well. We had no idea they were going to be there. We bumped into each other, and it was weird because we didn't know each other really well. There was a lot of distrust. Why is the chamber here? What is this board doing here? And we started talking, go figure, right? We started talking. And by the third day, we were kind of a unified group. And we left there saying, we don't know if this is our model, but if we decided to work together, maybe there's something here for us. And so we did. We decided that we would start with one school. And what we would do is we would see how we could create pathway opportunities for kids in high schools, especially in Title I high schools. And so that was about 4 years ago. 3 years ago, we started with our first school and district, and that started to grow over time. And it is something that now has grown to 20 high schools in Arizona and thousands of kids. Through that work, one of the things that we found, among other things, was that a lot of these kids had the skills, they had the ability, they certainly had the right to engage in some sort of dual enrollment opportunity, but they weren't doing it. Partially because they didn't know it existed, and mostly because they didn't have the funds to pay for the dual enrollment. So this is what I love about this sort of project, because it engaged the foundation, but it also engaged the chamber. Remember, I told you we do a lot at the legislature. So last year we got together with some of our partners and petitioned the legislature for an appropriation that would allow our kids, our Title I kids, to get at least 6 credit hours, usually 12 credit hours of dual enrollment before they graduated. It was an interesting issue because it was, believe it or not, bipartisan. There were folks on both sides. It was weird, right?
That never
both sides thought this was a good idea. It was odd, but it was a great thing to sort of be curious about. This bill passed, and now there's an opportunity for these kids to not have to worry about the financial barrier, and think about what this will mean going into college. If they have these 12 credit hours, it means they're probably going to continue on into the community college system, get a 2-year degree or a 3-year degree in industries or in areas where there's a huge demand in Arizona. So that first year we did it, we saw a 40% increase in dual enrollment in 20 high schools. So a significant number. This year we're seeing a smaller increase, and we had to ask ourselves, what's going on here? We obviously have a lot of kids out there that haven't seen this opportunity. What we found was, and probably what we're seeing in a lot of communities around our country, where we actually have a shortage of teachers who are certified in dual enrollment. So we were able to get funds together, and we're actually providing incentives for teachers to get certified. They have to do that. They have to pay to get certified. So we're helping them get certified. Our goal is to get them certified through the system, and then next year bring those numbers up again. But it's an interesting sort of process from where we started with us in Nashville, looking at how we can work together, to today looking at very specific numbers and the families that we're helping on a generational basis.
Yeah. Well, that goes back to, raising the tide, raises all ships as well. So in both of these programs, I see examples of that. So with this one, you're focused on the employers, making sure they have the pipeline coming in, but in focusing on that, you're enhancing the life of these young people going through high school and looking for that next step in their life, their work or college or both, right?
I agree.
And then the schools are being elevated and the teachers are being elevated. So all around, it's great.
They really are. And I'll tell you, a big part of this was internships, right? Along with a dual enrollment opportunity. And you can imagine what the reaction is from a lot of businesses when you tell them, we'd love to have some seniors come in and do an internship, especially in areas like healthcare or advanced manufacturing, like Honeywell. Yeah. And I'll use Honeywell as the example. They were very polite and they said no. And we finally convinced them 3 years ago to take 3 of our kids. And they said, okay, they have to be over 18. So they're in their spring semester. We'll take 3. Let us see what happens. They took 3. And at the end of it, they said, you know what? These kids they're pretty good. We're going to hire them.
Awesome.
So they hired these kids. Last year, they took 6. And they erased the 18-year-old rule. Well, let me fast forward to today. How many do you think they're taking?
I'm going to say at least 12 if you just keep doubling, right? Or is it 24? How many years is this now?
This will be the 3rd year.
3rd years? I'm going to guess 12.
88. They're taking 88 of our kids. Now, that's
awesome.
I'm going to bring this all back to where I started in terms of abundance, all right? So here's the story. So earlier last month, we met with the representative of Honeywell when he was telling us that they're going to increase to 88. And he said, I need to tell you what happened in that first cohort of kids. There was one kid who was on the bubble. Looks like he wasn't going to graduate. He wasn't engaged. High school just wasn't his thing. And the school and Honeywell decided, let's see what happens. Well, you know what happened, right? Honeywell hired him at the end because it really seemed to work. Well, guess what? Not today. Last month, he bought a house for his family.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, think about it. As a kid who was on the bubble, probably not going to graduate, all of a sudden, he's got this incredible job at Honeywell. And today, I mean, my kid's 20. He's not buying a house for his family. This kid just bought a house for his family. That's not political. That's all
amazing.
About how do we start to create an abundance mentality in our community and really create opportunity for everybody, including Honeywell, by the way.
Yes. Wow. That just blows my mind. The
Isn't that
88
great?
interns now. That great story, great success.
Yeah, and we've had a lot
Uh,
of those.
yeah, I bet we can go on for a couple hours probably telling some great
Well,
stories.
and I'd love to say that, kudos to the chamber. No, kudos to those companies. CVS just did 20.
Yeah.
So it's great to see that impact, and it's great to see companies stepping up like that.
Yeah. Well, and for those who do go the route of higher education after high school, it's a huge help to have those dual credits going into college and university and being able to kind of have that head start. And my son just graduated and he got out of high school with 30 college credits. Like, that's awesome going into
Good
it
for
as a
him.
sophomore, right? So
It's
that's
you, and think
great.
about the financially for you. I mean, that's
Yeah.
you just saved a year.
Yeah. I recognize it. Yes. Yeah. Well, Todd, I like asking, especially as a Chamber of the Year finalist, for listeners who are tuning in, what kind of tip or action item might you have to share with them as they look to take their chamber up to the next level?
Well, I'll go back to the 10 years ago when we decided that we needed to raise some money to make this happen. I think our goal was about $1 million. And that's a big number. It's a big number today. And as we were talking to business leaders, I think there's always a lot of skepticism about a new program and you're coming here to help. And we hear this all the time. And I think one of the things that we said that I think made a big difference when we made our pitch, I said, look, something in what I've just talked about is going to go wrong. Something's not going to work. I promise you that is going to happen. But I'm also going to promise you that we're going to take that, we're going to learn from it, and then we're going to pivot and we're going to make sure it does work. And I think we've gotten comfortable with being uncomfortable. And that's in all parts of our chamber. I mean, it's so easy to say, I don't know. That's kind of scary. Well, maybe we tried that before, or that's never going to work, or we've always done it this way. We do it too. But if you give yourself permission to fail, you're going to succeed.
Yeah, I love that. If you give yourself permission to fail, you're going to succeed.
It's
That's a
okay.
t-shirt. That's a t-shirt right there.
Yeah.
So,
But we fail a lot, and that's what makes us successful. It's okay.
That's right. That's right. You learn, right?
You bet.
Well, as we look to the future of chambers of commerce, how do you see the future of chambers and their purpose going forward?
Well, I really feel like chambers are in such a good place right now. I feel like, we're looking at ourselves in a way that is probably different than we had even 10 years ago. You mentioned foundations. I think there's a renewed emphasis on how we are really the heart of our economies. And I think probably, COVID was terrible. We wouldn't want to go through it again, but I think COVID really gave us a moment to really understand the importance that chambers serve in our communities. We are at the heart of our economies and our communities. And that certainly was reinforced during that time. And I think it gave us a new sense of what we need to be and how we need to do things and how we talk about ourselves. We are economic developers. Chambers are the original economic developers. I don't care how you slice it. That's how the community sees us now. I think that's tremendous. But we're also taking that a step further and looking at things that we hadn't traditionally looked at, like education, like foundation work. And I got to tell you, I love this industry and I'm so proud to be a part of it.
I love that. Yes. Every chamber is an economic developer. Doesn't matter what the city contract says, you are involved in developing the economy in your community.
100%.
Well, Todd, I wanted to give you an opportunity to share any contact information for listeners who may want to reach out and connect with you and learn how you guys are doing things there in Phoenix and maybe dig in a little deeper. Where would you point them?
Absolutely, Brandon. Happy to help on that side as well. You can always go to our website, phoenixchamber.com. A lot of information there about all the programs we talked about, including a few others that I didn't. My email address is tsanders@phoenixchamber.com. So feel free to reach out there as well. And then certainly if you want to have a conversation, 602-495-6460.
That's perfect. We will get that in our show notes for this episode too, to make it easy to reference and have people pull it up and find you there. But Todd, this has been great having you on Chamber Chat Podcast. I wish you and your team the best of luck in Dallas as Chamber of the Year, and keep up the great work. You guys are making a huge impact.
Well, thank you. We will look forward to seeing you there.
If you are a Chamber professional, please subscribe to Chamber Chat Podcast in Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or Spotify. When you subscribe to Chamber Chat Podcast, new episodes will show up in your podcast app each week as they are released. If you're finding value in this podcast, please leave us a rating and a review in iTunes. But most importantly, please share Chamber Chat Podcast with your colleagues that are in the industry.